Good afternoon. Would you like to try a free sample of our double fudge brownie?
Oh, sure. That's very good. I'll just take one more, just to be sure. Yep, still very good.
Some things never change, like never being able to take just one free sample. And Geico saving folks lots of money on their car insurance.
Is that macadamia nut I taste? Let me take one more.
Sir?
Yeah, I thought so.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to another episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl, Stephanie Hardy. If this is your first time listening to my podcast, welcome and thank you for joining the ride. If this isn't your first time listening, thank you for continuing this ride with me. Of course, I got your news and gossip-ish, and then I have a special conversation with Alabama State University alumnus and incredibly wonderful independent wrestler, Jon Averson. And then I got your weekly recap of all your favorite shows, Raw, NXT, and SmackDown. So sit back, relax, and chill out and listen to the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. Okay, so we're going to start with the news and gossip-ish that's going on in the world of wrestling. And we're going to start by talking about Kofi Kingston and his injury. So a lot of people wonder if he was legitimately injured because he was off of television on Monday, because Xavier Woods came out by himself for a match on Raw. But as it turns out, he really is injured. So it's been reported by Mike Johnson of PWIinsider.com that he is out with a broken jaw. And there's no word yet on when he is going to be back, but it's kind of sad that he's gone because it seemed like they were kind of, him and Xavier Woods were kind of working their way back up to the Raw Tag Team title picture, but they really only been participating in other tag team matches. But now that Kofi Kingston is gone, maybe Xavier Woods can get some of the singles run treatment that Big E and Kofi Kingston have been able to get. And he's really talented, so I feel like he would deserve something like that, especially since he's also successful in other avenues like his Up Up Down Down gaming channel on YouTube, and the fact that he's hosting a gaming show on G4 once the channel gets back up and running. So that's going to be cool, but we're going to give all kinds of good vibes and prayers and all types of good thoughts to Kofi Kingston as he recovers from his broken jaw. It seems like those have been going around a lot lately in wrestling between him, Kyle O'Reilly, and now and Finn Balor. Oh my God, all the jaws get broken. But this is wrestling. Stuff like this happens. Also in the news, we're going to talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin and how he's a fan of the Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman partnership. So he was in an interview with Justin Barrasso of Sports Illustrated, and he discussed, what he likes about the pairing of Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman during his Universal Championship reign as on SmackDown. He said, quote, "That's such a great package. They complement each other so well. Roman can work his butt off. He's always been very solid in the ring, but now there's this bond and this chemistry between Roman and Paul. That's what Paul Heyman does. He makes anybody he's with that much better. It happened for me too. If you want to suspend your disbelief, you can't help but believe he's Roman's rock of knowledge. The presentation, the package, and the chemistry between these two looks and sounds like money." So you can only imagine how cool it is to get a rub from somebody like Stone Cold Steve Austin, who's basically a legend in the business right now and living his best retirement life with his show Straight Up Steve Austin on USA and his Stone Cold's Broken Skull Session show on the WWE Network. But this week he was also reported to be appearing on the new season of Dark Side of the Ring. That's the show on Vice that talks about different really dark stories about wrestling involving different people. And on their first episode of the new season, they're going to be discussing Brian Pillman. And him and Brian Pillman were best friends, and they were in a tag team called the Hollywood Blondes, for those who remember that from a long time ago. And this will be his first time ever making an appearance on Dark Side of the Ring. So if you want to check that out, I'm not sure exactly when it's going to come on, but of course, if you want to check that out, please do, because Dark Side of the Ring has some really compelling but slightly disturbing stuff. Because as much as I don't really like to talk about it, wrestling does have its dark places, and that's a good show to watch if you want to know the history behind some of the darker stories in wrestling. So I do recommend that you check that show out if you want to know some history stuff there. Also in the news, Ricochet, who's one of my favorites on Monday Night Raw and just been my favorites, period, had to debunk rumors that he was leaving the WWE. So, according to David Meltzer via his latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, Ricochet is actually signed to a WWE deal until the summer of 2024. And this deal was reportedly signed in 2019, around the time when Ricochet was called up to the main roster. But he took to Twitter, I believe Thursday, to call out a specific article that said that his contract was expiring way more sooner than what Dave Meltzer reported, and that his last episode of Raw was going to be his last appearance after he lost to Mustafa Ali on December the 28th. But he went on Twitter to basically say that this isn't true and that he's not leaving the WWE anytime soon. And it seems that since his contract is reportedly until the summer 2024, a lot can happen, because with that feud that he has with Mustafa Ali and Retribution, it could make a star-making turn between them. You can't really just give up on people just because you don't see them on television all the time. Like, there's so much more that happens behind the scenes that might be, cooking up for Ricochet, that might be towards his benefit. For all we know, within the next few years, he might be world champion, or he might be IC champion. He might be on a completely different show. Who knows what could happen to him? But here's hoping that he'll actually have a better turnout, in wrestling as he continues to move forward. Also in the news, we have Charlotte Flair clapping back at some haters. So when she came back after TLC, and went on to win the women's tag team titles along with the Raw Women's Champion Asuka, which making her Asuka 2 belts, a lot of people on social media kind of just felt like there was like an issue with her sort of being like a dominator. And someone on a blog ran an article asking if Charlotte Flair deserves the hate that she gets. And the writer of that had some mixed things to say about her as a 12-time women's champion. Even though that he acknowledged that she was very talented, he also labeled her an intolerable corporate champion who gets priority treatment at the expense of others who legitimately earn their spots. And he was quoted as saying, "Charlotte Flair is the latest corporate champion to be selected by Vince and the selected face of the women's roster. What makes Flair so intolerable to many is how she lingers at the top and threatens to demean and squash any worker that has legitimately made their way up the mountain." And it's just it's weird, because as much as I love Charlotte, and I've actually met her, and I have pictures, proving, how, that I did meet her and all that other stuff. And she was just a nice person. She made me feel like she was meeting me and not the other way around. I could understand how people could see, oh, well, she's always on top and she always has the title and she always does this and always does that. And I could see how people could get irritated with that, but you have to think about it. She's a Flair. And not only is she, the daughter of the legendary Ric Flair, it's like she is an amazing athlete and she's dependable and she's always there. And she made mention of it, in a tweet responding to it. She said, I keep looking for the article where you trash one of the male champions for taking time off and being inserted back into the title picture. Didn't find one. Shocking. Wonder why. I'm in the title picture and I will always be in the title picture. It's one of those unfortunate side effects of excelling at something you wouldn't understand. And seeing as she's also one of the 4 horsewomen, along with Becky Lynch, Bayley, and Sasha Banks, somehow or another, there's always going to be money surrounding the fact that there's like around when it comes to storylines and women's storylines, there's always going to be money when you bank on any one of those 4. And with Becky being gone, because she's off being a mother to her newborn child with Seth Rollins, and with Sasha Banks being on, SmackDown, and also with Bayley being on SmackDown and feuding with, Bianca Belair, Charlotte being back just gives them another anchor to use on their show. And you cannot say that her being possibly putting possibly being put back in the title picture, even though right now she's currently feuding with Lacey Evans, who has, wooed away her father, Ric Flair, who's a sucker for blondes, isn't interesting. You can't say that anything she does just isn't interesting. So therefore, maybe we should just cut her a little bit of slack and understand that even though she's booked to be a champion, she's always on top because she's dependable and she's a great athlete. So let's just leave her alone and let her live her best life and wrestle and move on with life. Also in the news, we had Matthew McConaughey tease at plans to join WWE. So in a recent interview on the Better Together podcast, he was speaking to Maria Menounos, the host of it, by saying that he might be a little bit interested in being in WWE because Maria is also a wrestling fan herself, and she's made different appearances on wrestling shows, including WrestleMania in the past. And he said, I'll say not too much because, as you know, can't say too much about these things, but it is something that interests me. He's an avid wrestling fan, and one time he was even spotted in the virtual audience of the Thunderdome of October of last year while cheering on Drew McIntyre in his match against The Miz. And he also recalled a conversation about the WWE that he had with The Rock, who started off his career, who started off his career in wrestling before becoming a movie star. And he said The Rock was telling me his story about his storyline from good guy to bad guy and how he felt like it clicked in one night while he was in there. And I just hooked him, McConaughey said. And he loves to watch wrestling with his 3 kids, Levi, Vita, and Livingston, who are 12, 10, and 8. And he said that when it comes to wrestling, he loves the suspension and disbelief because his kids and I watch it. Well, him and his kids watch it. And they're starting to get that when they go, oh, this is fake. I'm going, what are you talking about? No way. Because I won't give them the wink yet, but they're starting to get that in there. There's a bit of one, 2 of them are like, this isn't fake, it's real. That's so much the fun of it. It's going, this is real, and it is. So if Matthew McConaughey was in wrestling, would you be okay with it? Listeners, would you be cool if he decided to get into wrestling? I feel like it's been cool, when other celebrities have gotten into it. With Bob Barker and Snoop Dogg and his more of a recent run in AEW when he did a frog splash onto someone. Like, that was really cool. So I feel like once you tie in celebrities with wrestling, you can never truly go wrong with it. Like, that's just a money-making opportunity, and I just feel like it leads people into wrestling who might have otherwise not have watched wrestling, which basically speaks to my point that I was making last week on my episode where I was talking about rap and wrestling and how that could tie together. So that's pretty much it for news and gossipish. And now we're going to go to our interview with independent wrestling star and Alabama State alumnus, Jon Averson.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Is that Shakespeare?
Nope, it's Geico.
Yeah, that's Shakespeare from one of his unpublished works. Oh, it be not for awakening. Nay, giveth thou the berries. For 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
No, it's from Geico, because they help save people money.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but Geico got it from Shakespeare.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Hello, Jon.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. Sorry about that technical issue beforehand. You know how technology can be.
You're right about that.
All right, so I'm going to start by asking you, when did you fall in love with wrestling?
I fell in love with wrestling when I was 8. I started watching it when I was 6. The first wrestling match I've watched was Adrian Christian versus the Hardy Boys. And I fell in love with it when I was 8, whenever I saw Chris Jericho on my TV screen. That was when I jumped off the couch, told my mom and dad I wanted to be like Chris Jericho when I got older.
Okay, that's pretty organic, and Chris Jericho is definitely a good wrestler to sort of start with. He's amazing. He's one of the greats, so that's a really good place to start. So when did you realize that you wanted to pursue it as a career seriously?
Whenever I was in high school, I was trying to figure out how can I get to wrestling. It was like since I graduated high school, I was trying to figure out how can I get to wrestling, because I knew that I wasn't going to get a football scholarship. So it was like, okay, I go straight to wrestling. So my parents had me had me sign for a college to go to, and then whenever while I was in college, I was able to Google up wrestling schools, and my best option at the time was WWA 4 in Atlanta.
Okay. So you mentioned how you were in high school, and then also in our previous conversation, I mentioned on your social media you have it listed that you are a proud alumni of Alabama State University. Shout out to them.
Go Hornets.
Yeah. So did you ever make any friends with anyone in college over wrestling? And what exactly did you major in college? And how did that and how did you wind up transitioning that into wrestling, or how was that different from wrestling, period?
Yeah, I majored in criminal justice, even though I really wanted to major in either PE or theater, but I ended up majoring in criminal justice. I met a couple friends through wrestling, and some of them were in the band. We're in the marching band that I met through wrestling.
Okay. So is that how you met Crystal?
Yes. And we took health ed class together.
Okay. And shout out to Crystal. She's one of our good friends and one of our loving supporters of the show, who told me about you, and I'm really glad she did. So, where are you originally from, and what made you pursue wrestling in other areas outside of the Alabama area?
Well, I was originally born and raised in Mobile, and I met with my best friends in Mobile named Danny Parker. I met him through wrestling, and he has a YouTube channel that I'm supporting him on. And what made me travel around was that I figured that if I want to get myself out there, the best thing to do is to hit the roads.
Okay. Oh, go ahead. You were about to say something else?
Oh, and travel. Is that the best way to get your name out there is to travel, is to hop in a car with other wrestlers who share that hunger and passion for wrestling as you do, and hit the roads.
Okay, and how has the independent wrestling scene treated you, since you started
it? It's been treating me pretty good. I got to meet a lot of good people and made amazing friends along the way.
Okay.
Like two of the closest friends I learned so much from, been on the roads with, was Cabana Man Dan and Donnie Janela. At the time, he was Donnie Primetime, but he's Donnie Janela now. And I've traveling on the roads with those two. I really learned so much being on the road with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because the first road trip I took with them was over to Nova Pro Wrestling over in Virginia. So that was like one of my first actual. I can say it was my first road trip of wrestling, but it was a big learning experience for me because at that show, Hall of Famer Tony Atlas was there, so I got to meet him.
Wow, that sounds really cool. Like, what was Tony Atlas like? Was he nice to you? Like, is he a cool person or what?
Yeah, he was cool. I didn't say much to him, but he was cool.
Oh, that's amazing. And then it's cool because he's like a historic, Black wrestler who sort of paved the way for people, like you in the wrestling scene. So I know that had to mean a whole lot.
Oh yeah. It's like every small, I always try to celebrate every small victory. I always celebrate it because at the end of the day, I had to tell myself, when people start chasing their dreams, people gotta think about when people start chasing their dreams, every small little bit means.
Right. That's a really good philosophy to have about that. So do you have a fan base, since you've started wrestling?
Yeah, and it's probably good for me to say is that majority of my fan base is my hometown of Mobile. because it's pretty great to see that my classmates from high school supports me big time. I'm glad to have that hometown support. That's what makes the journey a lot better, is that whenever I can come home, I feel like a hometown hero because they support me so much.
Mm-hmm.
And when I moved to Birmingham, I was able to meet more wrestling fans up here in Birmingham, which is pretty good.
Yeah, Birmingham is a pretty cool wrestling city, even though we don't necessarily have as many events as we would necessarily like, and especially now. It's like when wrestling does come through, there's like a big following for it, you know, which makes me feel like there should be more events catered towards us, you know, in the future. So it's good that you have that experience, you know, with people from your hometown and even here in Birmingham as well. So I want to ask you, how has your wrestling career been affected by the global event of the pandemic?
Yes, it has. It has, especially for me, because in December 2019, my car went out to where I had no way to get to shows. So I already missed 3 months of wrestling shows. And when I finally get a car, COVID hits a week after I finally get a car to drive to shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was like my first wrestling match of 2020 didn't happen until July.
Wow.
So I felt like I was far behind and had to catch my footing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also able to start back going to training every week constantly the moment that I got my car. Because I just started at a new wrestling school over at Nightmare Factory, where the trainer over there is QT
Mm-hmm.
Marshall. And I kind of feel like with my wrestling career and journey, I kind of feel like I was able to get the best of both worlds, being able to be trained under two of the best trainers in the world, which under AR Fox over at the DWI 4 and QT Marshall over at the Nightmare Factory. So I felt like I got the best of both worlds, being trained by two of the best trainers in Georgia.
Okay, so it's good that you actually kept, you know, sharpening your axe, as a lot of people would say, when it comes to stuff like that. Because when it comes to moments like that, a lot of people kind of just feel sad or just rest on their laurels, but you clearly didn't do that. You just kept sharpening your skills, and that's always good to hear. So you were able to cope with that. So what was training at the Nightmare Factory like? I saw that picture that you posted a couple days ago, and I was like, oh my God, that's him with Cody. Like, what? Like, what was that like?
Training. The training there is great. It's great because I got QT Marshall and his wife is the nutritionist, and she comes up the meal plans to where not just only are you a wrestler, but you look
Mm-hmm.
like a wrestler. Because you gotta have the look, charisma, and the skills. And one thing that QT Marshall said was that if you want to make it in wrestling, first off, you gotta be a good wrestler. Then second, you gotta be a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And he also gave me matches to watch, because I remember in training, he told me to watch this Coco Beware match. Then that's when I looked up that, I did not realize this. I looked it up that Coco Beware had a match against Ric Flair. And it was actually a great match. So I was glad that during training, we'll have like 5-minute matches, because the reason why he does that is because you got major companies that do 5-minute matches in a tryout. So it's getting us ready for the tryouts for those who want to make it to the next level. And like every majority wrestler that I know, the goal is making it to the next level. But me, my ultimate goal in wrestling is to be wrestling on someone's TV,
Mm-hmm.
screen. That's always been my goal since day one.
Okay, so who exactly do you credit for training you, like, say, from beginning and up until now?
AR Fox put in so much work in me. AR Fox, who I gotta give credit to, and I also owe lots of credit to QT Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
when I first started training at the WWA4, Mr. Hughes was the trainer. Then AR Fox came in, and that's where the real work started. And I gotta give Mr. Hughes a tad bit of credit for showing me the basics. But I owe so much to AR Fox. Because AR Fox he sat me down and told me that with wrestling, you have to be obsessed with wrestling. Because I remember one time he saw me post a picture on Facebook of me playing a video game of wrestling. And he called me out about it at training the following day. And he told like, Averson, you should be watching wrestling, studying wrestling, not playing it on the video game. And then I remember next time in drills, we was running a drill, then he was like, Averson, do they have that move on the video game? So like AR Fox, he has so much love and passion for the business. And that's one big lesson I learned from AR Fox is having respect for the business. That's lesson number one that he taught me whenever he started becoming a trainer. So I remember the first time we spoke to each other was when he saw me throw a bad clothesline and he called me out on it. Mm-hmm. So that was the first time we ever interacted with each other, was whenever there was a drill was doing that threw a bad clothesline and he called me out about it and pointed it out to me. And since then, that's what started a friendship between me and AR Fox.
Okay.
And whenever and with me, and I was also making 2-hour drives from Birmingham to Atlanta to train. That's just how serious I was about wrestling. So instead of me drive back home, he would let me crash at his house. Or if I'm crashing at AR Fox's house, he has me watching wrestling strictly, just watching wrestling completely.
Wow. So it seems like AR Fox is really like a very hands-on type of trainer, and the fact that he's very, he's trying to make sure that he stewards a level of passion within you, because if you're not as passionate about it, then why are you doing it? And it seems like he's, trying to foster a sense of, being a student of the game. And I think that's really cool. That sounds like a really good trainer and a good teacher to have. So you did mention how your goal is to make it to television. So I got to ask you, if you were given a chance, would you wrestle for a company that is more mainstream like WWE, AEW, Impact, and the like?
Of course. Honestly, I would go whoever offers me a contract, that's what I would go to. If it's WWE, AEW, or even Impact or Ring of Honor, or MLW. So it's like whoever offers me a contract and offer it to where I can make enough money to provide for family. That's where I go to. Whoever offers me a contract. So that's where I'm at. Because I've been wrestling I'm in my 5th year of wrestling right now, to where I'm just want to go to whoever's going to sign me.
Right. Okay, so what are some tips that you would give to anyone who dreams of being a wrestler?
Well, first thing I'll tell them is to, as AR Fox told me, a wrestler's best friend is a gym membership. So I'll tell them first thing first, get a gym membership. Then second, look for wrestling schools around your area, and don't just go to any wrestling school. Do the research on your trainer. Like whoever you're getting trained from, look at their line of work and see what all they've done in their career. Third, save up money for wrestling school. And fourth, if you want to start going to wrestling shows, make sure that you have people in your circle that are just as hungry as you are. And number 5, be loyal to yourself and be a good person, and have respect for the business and those before you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's pretty good advice there. So what keeps you motivated to be your very best?
What keeps me motivated is that I had to realize that there are eyes out there watching. You know, you might be at a show where there's only like 2 people there, but one of those people could be recording the show, posting it online where 2 more people can watch it. Then 2 more people watching it, then another 2 people watching it. So 2 times 50, that's probably 100 people. Then 100 times 2, that's probably 200. And the addition goes on. So it's like, so eventually, if the right hands get on that footage, it can lead to good things. Because I remember it was back in 2017 whenever I was part of this battle royal, and someone was able to take a picture of me save myself from elimination, similar to what Kofi Kingston did in Royal Rumble back in 2014. And I remember I posted it on Twitter on how I channeled my inner Kofi Kingston. And the cool thing about it, Kofi Kingston replied to it and said nice. And that there just made my day. Yeah, so I was able to screenshot it and have it for memories.
That is so beautiful. Like, Kofi Kingston is one of my absolute favorites. Like, I actually talk about it a little bit on my show, how much I love Kofi Kingston and how him becoming WWE champion meant the absolute world to me. And he's just always been one of my favorites. I actually had a moment with him, like, after the last SmackDown that came to Birmingham. You know how the wrestlers sort of leave the arena afterward, and sometimes they like to interact with the fans. He actually came out, and I guess he was really tired or something like that, so he didn't really interact with us. But I yelled out, "I love you, Kofi," and he actually pointed at me and touched his heart, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" Oh, he was like that. Just meant the world to me. Like, he's just so nice, and I love everything he's done with the New Day and everything. So that's so good that you got to interact with him like that. Don't you just love it when wrestlers interact with their fans on social media? That's like the coolest thing.
Oh yeah, the same. Yeah, because the same with Charlotte. Whenever I took a picture of Charlotte, she complimented me on my shirt because I wore a Wonder Woman shirt, and she complimented me on my shirt, and I was able to get a picture of her. She liked the picture when I shared it on Twitter the next day. Because I remember, because Ring of Honor came to Atlanta, so it was like I was able to take a picture with Charlotte. Then the following day, rushed to Ring of Honor to work Ring Crew. So working Ring Crew for Ring of Honor, that also allowed me to try to get a foot in the door somehow.
That is so good. Because I actually met Charlotte myself at a meet and greet a couple of years back, and she was really nice. And she gave me an autograph on my title too, so that was good. She made me feel really special in that moment. And also to speak to you working, behind the scenes in Ring of Honor, like, that is also like a good stepping stone as well, because you just never know what type of skills you might have to utilize if you're called upon to do a thing, for a mainstream show. Because there have been lots of wrestlers who are big and famous now with their own names who started off being background people. So there's just so much, that ties into it. But I'm really glad you're having these experiences in your journey.
Yeah, I am too.
Okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to ask you, who are some of your favorite wrestlers, male, female, of any era?
Oh.
No, of any era. It doesn't matter. Like.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for males, it's, you got Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels, Edge and Christian, Eddie Guerrero. And then for females, you got, this may throw you off a bit, but Alicia Fox is one of my favorite female wrestlers. Then after Alicia Fox, you got Sasha Banks. Then I can't forget about Molly Holly, Trish.
Oh, what's up, man? Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Then you got Trish Stratus and Jacqueline.
That's a great selection there.
Yeah, cause like Jacqueline, I don't know, like some folks may underestimate her strengths.
Yeah, I feel, I kind of could see that, but to me, how can you underestimate someone who was a women's champion and a cruiserweight champion? Like,
yeah, cause that don't get mentioned as much. Oh yeah, I also left out Tessa Blanchard. She's a female wrestler I like. And I like how she was making history with being the first woman to win the Impact World title.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that was a historic moment for her.
Yeah, and one woman wrestler that I'm a fan of, and I actually trained with her is Danny Jordan. I train with her, but I'm a big Danny Jordan supporter and Danny Jordan fan. Where whenever she first came out with shirts, I bought her first shirt.
Okay.
And right now she's on. Right now she's been on AEW Dark, and she's doing great for herself, and I'm proud for her.
Okay, well, I'll be sure to try to check her out or something now that you've mentioned her. So I also want to ask you, what has been your greatest accomplishment in wrestling so far?
Greatest accomplishment? Ooh, I don't know. I don't know what's my greatest been so far. I did win a tag team championship at the WWE 4 with my tag team partner at the time, the Reflection Dion Murphy. That's one of the accomplishments I can say that I'm proud of, is that I was able to win a championship belt in wrestling. And then I was able to wrestle Action Mike Jackson with him because he's like a legend.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a legend who's been wrestling for a long time. And he was recently on Impact Wrestling. Not recently, but it was a while ago, to where he was a 70-year-old man wrestling against Johnny Swinger. So I was proud to have a match against him.
Mm-hmm.
And some other accomplishments I was able to share the ring with Rhino. So that was a cool moment.
Yeah, I saw that picture.
Yeah, so that was a cool moment that I was very proud of.
Okay, so I want to ask you, who is your dream opponent?
My dream opponent? Well, I have more than one dream opponent. One of them is Matt Hardy.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because I was able to follow Matt Hardy's career from when he started off on the trampoline, then Hardy Boys, then Matt Hardy version 1. I'm a huge fan of the version 1 stage of Matt Hardy. And how he was able to evolve his character throughout the years. So he's one of my dream opponents. Then my other dream opponent is that I would love to wrestle is one of my role models, Chris Jericho. And Zack Ryder, because one thing about Zack Ryder is that he was able to get himself over with the crowd on his own. And that was inspiration to me, is that to see Zack Ryder start off with nothing and find his own way to build a connection with the fans.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing him win an Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania 32, that made my day.
That was amazing.
Like, seeing Zack Ryder finally get his WrestleMania moment, that gave me lots of hope.
You know, I'm glad you actually mentioned Matt Hardy as your first one, because I love him and his brother for obvious reasons. I call them my brothers in my head because we have the same last name. So it's just kind of... So it's just... So when you said that, I was just like, yay! All right. So I have like 2 more questions to ask you. This one is, do you wish to be a great representation of Black wrestling talent?
Of course. Of course. Mm-hmm. Of course, because like, not just only with wrestling, but athletes in general. Like, there's so many Black athletes out there that are breaking the mold, that are actually representing us pretty well. Like Lamar Jackson, LeBron James, Usain Bolt, the track runner. There's a lot of Black athletes out there that are representing us pretty well. Then you got Black wrestlers who actually made impacts, such as Mark Henry, Kofi Kingston, then Too Cold Scorpio, Booker T, MVP, and Shelton Benjamin. And the list goes on for great Black wrestlers.
Yeah. So basically, you know, you're going to be on that list next.
That'd be an honor.
Be on that list next, and I can say I had you on my show.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're definitely welcome. So what does the future hold for you, Jon?
Right now, with the future, my future for me, all I can say is that my future looks bright. It depends on the work I put in, because I had to tell myself that I'm gonna get out what I put in. So I'm gonna continue working hard, not just only in training, but away from the ring, watching wrestling, studying wrestling, working out in the gym. As long as I keep that foot on the pedal, I feel like my future is going to be very bright.
Okay, that's a really good answer. So as long as basically you work hard, then the future basically just belongs to you.
Yeah. Yes, and one thing that motivates me is that I see some of my peers that I started with, they're getting big breaks. The reason why is because they work hard. They work their tails off. So I tell myself, I'm going to have to do the same thing if I want to get bigger breaks.
Right.
Because I'm going to take a CM Punk quote. You can't change nothing by sitting on your couch.
Amen.
So it's like, so with wrestling, it's a non-stop grind to where the work never stops. If you're either you're training in the ring, or you watching film, or you're in the gym working out.
Okay.
Cause like, I would say, like with wrestling, you gotta treat it like a marriage. And with me, you know, I have a wife and I'm married, but I kind of feel like wrestling is another marriage. So I'm kind of like have two marriages here.
Uh-huh.
I'm married to wrestling, then I'm married to my wife at home. So that's just how wrestling has been.
You know, you're probably the first person I've ever heard, tie in marriage and wrestling, but I love it though. So I think that's a beautiful way to end our time together. So Jon Averson, thank you so much for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. It was an honor to have you.
Thanks. And it was an honor to be on the show. I'm glad I was able to be a guest on the show.
If you don't mind telling everyone where they can follow you on social media and where they can watch some of your matches and anything else you got going on.
Yes, you can follow me on Twitter at Jon_Averson. Wait, that's my Instagram name. I'm sorry. That's my Instagram name. Jon_Averson. Then at Twitter at Jon Averson. Then I also have a Jon Averson page on Facebook. And this coming Saturday, I'll be over at New South, over at Huntsville, Alabama, at the JC Arena. And that's what I'll be wrestling at this coming Saturday. And I have a couple of my matches on YouTube. And you can find a few of my matches on IWTV and Fight TV. And those are the places you can find Jon Averson.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. You continue to do great things, okay? All right.
Okay,
goodbye.
Thanks.
Okay, so I was sitting with my friends one day and they asked me, Stephanie, how do you record your podcast? And I said, with the Anchor app on my phone. And they were like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, it's that simple. It is absolutely free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone and your computer. And it will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from the podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's got everything you need to make a podcast in one place. They even have classes and stuff that you can listen to that will give you all kinds of good tips on what you need to do in order to make the best podcast. So if you want to do this, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm or download the free Anchor app to get started. Okay, we want to send a special thank you to Jon Averson for spending time on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. We wish him nothing but the best. So now we're going to go to our weekly recap of Monday Night Raw. And y'all, I know that this is the chill, positive, and passionate podcast for wrestling, but I'm just going to keep it 100 with y'all like I always try to do most of the time. Raw has not been good. It has been on the struggle bus for the past couple of weeks, but I really feel like this week was definitely probably the worst I ever felt about a Monday Night Raw. Now, I'm going to recap everything that happened, but just know there are a few things that I did like, but it wasn't so much so to the point to where it was something that I overwhelmingly loved, okay? Please charge it. Y'all, just know that I have to keep it real. It just wasn't the best. It was not the best episode, but we're going to discuss it anyway. So, one of the parts that I actually really liked and which really surprised me was the part about that involved Charlotte Flair and her match with Lacey Evans. Now, as y'all know, they kind of started a beef with sort of Ric Flair sort of coming out and sort of causing Charlotte Flair to lose the match. And they made mention of it, at the beginning of her interview, right before her match. And she said, that her and her father knows that they can get heated with one another, but there's no problem with them after last week, and that they talked it out and that they love each other and stuff, right? And she also said that Lacey Evans is not the first woman to hit on Ric Flair in front of her. And then Lacey Evans also had an interview during Charlotte Flair's entrance, and she basically said that, you know, who wouldn't flirt with Ric Flair? You know, he's a legend, he's making money, you know, he knows how to, you know, basically saying, you know, why, like, who wouldn't holler at him, right? But my thing is, Ric Flair looks like he could be your daddy, but yet you're hollering at him. But that's no shame to those who are attracted to older men. But at the same time, girl, he could be your daddy, but either way, whatever. So she went out there and started laughing and went out there and made her entrance. And then the match got started as they locked up, and then Charlotte forced Evans towards the corner, and then she knocked Lacey Evans down with a running shoulder, but they let her get back up. And then Charlotte talked a lot of trash as she chopped away at her opponent with the woo chop. And then she began working over Lacey Evans' knee, which is something that's a signature Flair move, but she failed to apply the figure 4, which turns to the figure 8. And then as she gets ready to do the figure 4, Ric Flair's music hits, and then he comes out. And Charlotte kind of looks at him like, why are you here? Because she mentioned in the interview that he was at home, but as it turns out, he wasn't at home. He's there. So after they got back from commercial, Charlotte continued to control the majority of the match until Lacey, you know, ducked her big boot that she likes to give and then whipped her down with her hair. And then Charlotte was about to pin Lacey, Ric Flair interfered in the match and then placed Lacey Evans' foot on the bottom rope. And Charlotte was yelling at him, and basically, you know, and as he was yelling at him, you know, he tripped her up during a suplex and then helped Evans win by holding her feet to prevent a kick out. And then Lacey Evans and Ric Flair celebrated in the aisle together. And I'm just like, are you serious? Like, I'm so angry. Why would you stab your daughter in the back for some blonde bimbo who just said she wanted you last week? Why? And also, to be frank, to take out a kayfabe, you're acting like this as if we haven't seen your wife, the Wondrous Wendy. And I actually met her, and she's really nice. But, like, seriously, you're doing all of this as if we haven't met Wendy. And somehow or another, Lacey Evans is doing this as if we haven't seen your daughter Summer be out there in the crowd when everything was normal with your husband. It's so weird, but at the same time, I mean, in terms of character work, if she's going to be a heel and Ric Flair is now turning a heel and now he's going to, you know, stab his daughter in the back for some loving from a pretty blonde, then why not? But in my head, I kept feeling like, wouldn't it be funny if Cardi B just popped out of nowhere and started beating her up? I'm not going to stop until Cardi B gets on WWE. I'm going to keep manifesting it. I'm going to keep speaking it until it happens. I don't care when it happens. If it's this year, next year, or whenever, it has to happen. I want Lacey Evans versus Cardi B. But this was definitely interesting here. Like, I never thought that we would see Ric Flair, who cries over his daughter's accomplishments every time she wins a title, actually turn on her. Because I was thinking maybe it was going to be Charlotte to turn on him like last time. But as it turns out, it was him turning on her. So, woof. Either way, it was still relatively interesting. Also, on the women's front, we had a match it was a tag team match between Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose and Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. And Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose declared themselves for the Women's Royal Rumble matches coming up in a couple of weeks in a backstage promo before they got to fighting with Shayna and Nia. Then Shayna took control of Mandy Rose almost immediately, but was unable to do her signature arm stomp. Then Dana and Nia came in, and then Nia, you know, took her down with ease because, of course, you know, she's irresistible force and that's a big girl. So she's going to she's going to easily knock down Dana Brooke. But I'm pretty sure Dana Brooke, you know, still very much put up a fight. Then Mandy tagged herself in and had a burst of offense before Jax picked her up for a Samoan drop. Then Dana Brooke barely managed to break up the pin, and then Nia stacked them up in the corner for a running splash. But then somehow, in a point of dissension here, Shayna tagged herself in and locked Mandy Rose into the Kirifuda clutch for the win, and Nia did not look happy about it. So even though we've seen these people fight each other multiple times before in singles competition and tag team competition, I'm really looking forward to Nia and Shayna breaking up. because I just feel like Shayna Baszler just needs a complete reset in terms of her run, because she has so much to offer athletically that I really feel like she should be next in line to challenge for Asuka's Raw Women's title. If she won the Royal Rumble, I wouldn't necessarily be mad about it, but my pick to win the Royal Rumble is Bianca Belair, because they had Charlotte, who was on Raw last year, win the Royal Rumble. So I would prefer Bianca Belair won. But Shayna Baszler really needs to be booked as a monster, because that's really who she is. And when she was in NXT, she was absolutely unstoppable. And then she got to the main roster and beat up the entire Raw roster, only to lose to Becky Lynch. And now Becky's gone and she hasn't had a chance at another singles title since. And I feel like that's not necessarily the best thing for her. Now, as far as Nia Jax is concerned, she's better as a solo act too. So yeah, I just feel like their tag team partnership has sort of run its course, and I'm kind of glad that they're sort of trying to split them apart now. So there's that. And also with the women, after the Triple H and Orton encounter, Triple H left, as the lights went out, and then as him and Randy Orton both look really confused. And then at a certain point, the game realized that his sledgehammer, was on fire, and then the lights went out and Triple H disappeared. And then a distorted version of the Firefly Funhouse theme started playing. And Alexa Bliss popped up and she shot a fireball into Randy Orton's face as the show went off the air. So she's doing magic powers, and she looked at her gloves that basically said, play or pain or something like that. And she set Randy Orton on fire. And one of the best parts of my week was basically seeing one of my former college professors, Mr. Baskin. Shout out to Mr. Baskin, who's a retired Berea College professor, ask me about it. Like, he was just like, what happened to Randy Orton? And I was just like, because he said he saw the end of Raw, and I was like, yeah, he got set on fire. And Alexa Bliss is an accomplice to this guy named Bray Wyatt, who's also the Fiend. And he laughed at it, but I'm just like, yeah, like, this is what's going on. Something that's been happening to me as of late, which has nothing to do with Raw technically, but has to do with this podcast. I have some of my former college professors who are really into the fact that I'm doing a podcast about wrestling, because they used to watch it or probably still do watch it. And if they follow me on Facebook, then they listen to it. And it's so funny because one of my professors, well, actually two of them, have never really looked at wrestling before in their lives, or it had been like a number of years since they've watched it, and they actually listen to me talk about it, and that makes me feel really good inside. It's the coolest thing on the planet when you get, really amazing academic heroes in your life to actually listen to you talk about wrestling. And then it makes them sort of go back and look at the show, and then they ask you questions about it. Like, it is amazing. I absolutely love it. So yeah, that's pretty much all that happened with the women. And now we're going to go to the men. So the show started with Triple H coming out, and sort of teasing some kind of, announcement of sorts or whatever. So Drew McIntyre, of course, was announced as having tested positive for COVID-19 in real life. And he's going to be self-isolating for the next 2 weeks. And it's possible that he might not be back before, the Royal Rumble. So we don't know really what's going to happen here with his, confrontation with Goldberg. We'll see. I don't know. So basically, Triple H came out and he spoke for maybe like 5 seconds until he was interrupted by Randy Orton, his old running buddy / rival. So Randy Orton, thought he deserved to have the WWE title handed to him due to McIntyre being out of action due to COVID. But Triple H told him that he would have to win the men's Royal Rumble match in order to get an opportunity at the title again. But then they both went back and forth. And then Triple H said he was proud of Randy Orton when he put his own career ahead of everything else by lighting the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, on fire. And he said he also doesn't understand why Orton felt the need to embarrass so many legends. But then Randy Orton responded by saying that he's in his prime, and he challenged Triple H to a match. And then as Triple H was kind of resisting, he said no, and then he walked out of the ring, and he was almost giving the impression that maybe he was going to send somebody else to fight Randy Orton, which to me, in my mind, made me feel like, oh, what if it's a call-up from NXT? But it wasn't. And Randy Orton made the statement of saying, why won't you do it? Is it because Stephanie has your, forgive me for saying this, but your balls in her purse? And I was just like, oh my God. And then Triple H got back in the ring and then accepted his challenge, and then he punched him in the face and he left. So, these two have been fighting back and forth for a long time. So this wasn't, it wasn't a huge surprise, but at the same time, it's still intriguing. Like Triple H versus Randy Orton will never stop being, intriguing. So, and that's pretty much all I can say about that. Then, in terms of the men, we had a match with Jeff Hardy, my brother, versus Jackson Ryker. And so Jackson Ryker started with an early onslaught onto Jeff Hardy, and then he took him down, and then Hardy took him down and then prepared for the Swanton. But then Elias provided a distraction, and then Jackson Ryker rolled Hardy up for the win. So we have an actual win for Jackson Ryker on television. Yay, don't care. Then Jeff Hardy grabbed a microphone and challenged Elias to face him, again, like we haven't seen him fight multiple times before. And so Elias was scared, that the world would think that Ryker was better than him. So he was sort of telling Jackson Ryker not to interfere while also telling him to interfere. So then after the commercial break, the match got started, and then Elias took an early lead and then aggressively cornered Jeff Hardy with some shots to the body. But then Jeff Hardy took him down with a whisper in the wind for a 2 count. And then Jeff Hardy hit a twisted fate and a swanton for the win. And then Elias started fussing at Jackson Ryker and said, why didn't you help me? Why didn't you help me? And Jackson was like, because you told me not to. But I guess Jackson doesn't understand sarcasm very well. So yeah, that's how that ended. And this even though this match was still pretty good, it was just kind of like, it was almost like they were making it seem like we hadn't seen them fight so many times before. And it was just kind of blah. Here again, this is where the struggle bus stuff started coming in. So yeah. Then we have The Miz and John Morrison versus Sheamus and Keith Lee. And after a confrontation backstage with Miz and Morrison, Sheamus and Keith Lee, put their differences aside to take them on in a tag team match. John Morrison and Sheamus started, but then Lee was quickly tagged in by Sheamus for a double team combo. And they showed no signs of animosity, and then they really seemed to want to get together and work together and put everything aside so they can beat up their opponents here. Because at first, they were beefing because Sheamus was low-key giving off the impression that he was jealous of Keith Lee for being in line for the WWE Championship that Sheamus's best friend, Drew McIntyre, currently holds, right? So I guess now they're sort of putting that aside to fight together. Then Keith Lee threw John Morrison into The Miz, and then they tagged Sheamus in. And then they seemed to be having fun as they took turns beating on their opponents. Then Keith Lee crushed John Morrison in the corner, and the top rope snapped off, which I thought was one of the coolest parts of the night. Like, Keith Lee is so strong, he threw a whole nother human into the turnbuckle and broke it. Give him all the titles now. Anyway, so he looked really surprised, and Sheamus looked really, enthralled by it too. And then they came back from commercial break, and then The Miz hit Sheamus with a DDT for a near fall. And then The Miz cornered him so he and John Morrison could take turns beating him down to the mat and keeping him away from Keith Lee. But finally, when Sheamus was able to get the hot tag to Keith Lee, Keith started bulldozing both opponents, and then Sheamus tagged himself in to hit the bro kick for the win. And then they hugged and shook hands after the bell. So Sheamus and Keith Lee won this match. So after they won this match, they kind of got into it a little bit. And then they got upset at each other, during the commercial break and something like that. And then they challenged each other to a match. And for them to have wrestled a match before this one, they almost showed no signs of being tired here. So, there goes that conditioning. They traded strikes back and forth until Keith Lee hit a huge headbutt, and then he tied up Sheamus against the ropes and lit him up with lots of hits to the chest. Then Sheamus took him out at the knee and then whipped his left arm into the ring post a few times, and then he spent the next few minutes keeping Keith Lee grounded with various holds. Then Lee lifted him off the mat and then dropped him to break an armbar before hitting the Spirit Bomb, which is like one of the best moves ever, for the win. And Keith Lee beat Sheamus clean. And I feel like this is a good, run for Keith Lee. If he's going to win, he needs to win against these legitimate people. And if they're going to keep putting him over, then a win like this will definitely help him, And then Keith offered Sheamus a fist bump after the match, but then Sheamus hugged him instead. And this was nice to see because, I feel like it's too often, where a babyface will hold out his hand for like a handshake, and then the heel will like walk away. But Sheamus here really didn't do the heel thing. He ran up and hugged him, and I thought that was nice because I always like to see men hug each other because, men can show love and express love to their brother too. So that was nice to see, and that match was really good. Then we had T-Bar versus Xavier Woods of the New Day. And Xavier Woods, like I said, in News and Gossipish, came out by himself because Kofi's injured. And, of course, Big E's on SmackDown as the Intercontinental Champion. So he came out by himself with his horn, and that was a little bit awkward for me because I'm so used to seeing people next to him, but it's okay. I love Xavier Woods. He's my birthday twin. So he came out to take on T-Bar, who had the rest of Retribution on his side, led by Mustafa Ali. And then Mustafa asked where Kofi Kingston was as T-Bar took control, talking smack from the outside of the ring apron. And then after a couple of minutes of T-Bar dominating the match, Xavier hit a jawbreaker to give himself a chance to recover. And then he started to build up a head of steam as he hit a series of different moves. Then he nailed a missile dropkick that sent T-Bar out of the ring and followed up with a dropkick to the ropes. But then there was a distraction from Mustafa Ali that allowed T-Bar to yank Woods into the top rope. And then he picked Woods up and then hit his finisher, which the announcers called Eyes Wide Shut, for the win. And so now we have T-Bar, who's gotten probably a much needed win for Retribution, because Retribution really hadn't won a match since, I think, the match that Mustafa had with Ricochet. And it's just, I think at some point maybe they were trying to get Xavier to kind of just leave, the New Day behind and join them. But guys, Xavier's not going to join you. Like, calm down. No. He's a happy person. He is not going to join you. Leave Retribution. Leave Xavier alone. Let him be a happy person. No, but everybody don't want to be with you. But it's still good that T-Bar, aka Dominik Dijakovic, was able to win a match. Since he's been called up. So that was good. So then we had a match with Bobby Lashley versus Riddle for the United States Championship. And so this match was pretty good. You had Bobby Lashley come out with MVP, of course, as the Hurt Business. And Bobby Lashley looked like he wasn't in the mood to play any games here. He was ready to beat up Matt Riddle. So Lashley attacked his opponent before the bell rang to get an early advantage. And then Matt Riddle told the referee he could continue because, of course, the ref has to ask, do you want to continue to fight or do you want to chill out? And Riddle said no, and he wanted to continue to fight. And as soon as the bell rang, Lashley began punishing him in the corner. And then he dumped Matt Riddle out of the ring. But then Riddle was able to shove him into the ring post and hit a floating bro at ringside. Then Bobby Lashley caught him in midair and then slammed him into the mat before applying the Hurt Lock for the submission victory here. So in a very quick kind of match here, Lashley was able to basically, end Matt Riddle in short order like he kind of did a few weeks ago, but the referee didn't see the tap out there. So that happened, and then Matt Riddle called out MVP on the microphone and challenged him to a match. But MVP seemed happy to return the favor as the show went to a commercial break. And then we returned to see them already fighting as MVP hit the ball in elbow for a 2 count. Then Matt Riddle took control, but then Lashley hit him with a spear to cause a disqualification. Now, I was slightly intrigued with seeing Matt Riddle challenge MVP, because seeing MVP wrestle just kind of takes me back to my childhood a little bit. But of course, you know, he doesn't look like that anymore with his braids and his, you know, big old MVP necklace and his whole athletic, you know, tights and stuff. But at the same time, it was still cool to kind of see him in the ring, fighting with Riddle and scrapping it up with this new guy. So who knows? They might fight next week, but if they fight next week, that might be really intriguing, there. So I'm not sure if Matt Riddle is going to stay in the United States title picture, but I wouldn't necessarily be mad if he does still stay in it either. So, yeah. Then we had Drew Gulak versus AJ Styles. And backstage, Drew Gulak asked Adam Pearce, the WWE official who's had a rough go of it lately with Roman Reigns on the other show, for a spot in the Royal Rumble. But then Adam told him that he had to earn his spot by defeating AJ Styles. Then during their match, AJ Styles took control early, but then Drew was able to turn stuff around, and then he almost won with a couple of pinning combinations. Then AJ Styles dumped him over the top rope to the floor, and then almost was standing nearby, you know, his very best friend, who's really tall and awesome, and kicks guitars. Then Drew Gulak saw his giant foot and then looked up to see the imposing figure looming over him, but then AJ Styles brought him back to the ring and then hit the phenomenal forearm for the victory. I'm kind of disappointed that AJ Styles and Drew Gulak didn't fight longer, because a match between a veteran like AJ Styles and a grappler like Drew Gulak, who's also a former cruiserweight champion, you know, that could have gone for way longer than it did. And I want to see them fight a little bit more. And I want to see more of Drew Gulak proving to the world and to the audience and to himself that he can be in a big picture program, you know, if he really wanted to. Because seeing him constantly lose and job over and over again to these other bigger people to kind of make him look irrelevant just kind of sucks. Like, he's really good. Like, there's so much more they could be doing with him, but they're not. And so that's a little bit sad. And that's pretty much it. That's all that happened on Monday Night Raw, on this Struggle Bus Raw. And I hope that they do a little bit better within the next couple of weeks. But, you know, who's to say what's going to happen there? And now we're going to recap NXT. All right, so now we're going to recap NXT. Okay, yeah, NXT. So this show actually started with the women. It started with a match between Shotzi Blackheart and Candice LeRae. And, you know, they've been beefing back and forth lately, considering Candice LeRae destroyed her tank. It was messing with her all the time. And also Candice LeRae's team beat Shotzi Blackheart's team at NXT TakeOver War Games a couple weeks ago. So now they want to fight each other. So this match was really good. They began using a quick pace, and then they seemed evenly matched until Blackheart took Candice LeRae down with a short arm scissor submission. Then Indy Hartwell was cheering Candice LeRae on, but of course she proved to be an X factor later on in the match. And she was cheering on Candice from ringside, and then they took the fight out of the ring, and then Blackheart hit a jumping knee from the steel steps, and then Indy Hartwell used a distraction to allow Candice LeRae to take control. And then they traded the upper hand several times in this match, but then neither competitor could really put each other away until Candice LeRae hit a swinging neckbreaker from the middle turnbuckle for a pin, and that was really impressive to look at. Like, I really love that neckbreaker from the turnbuckle. And then Indy Hartwell provided another distraction to give her the win. So, I kind of hate how Candice LeRae and her husband Johnny Gargano, the North American champion, are just trying to take over the entire WWE now. I mean, I understand you have to have a heel faction now, considering the Undisputed Era really isn't a heel faction anymore. But at the same time, the Garganos and their way, because they think they're the Mandalorian or whatever, gets on my nerves. They just get on my nerves, and all they do is cheat when they don't even have to cheat. They're fantastic on their own. Don't cheat, but whatever, since they got to be evil, they got to use their kids to cheat. They got to use Austin Theory and Indy Hartwell to cheat. So whatever, but still, this match was still good, and I really love Shotzi Blackheart. She's becoming better and better each week, and Candice LeRae is always really good too. So also with the women, we had Xia Li versus a jobber. We're not exactly sure what this jobber's name was. So she came back and she hit like one right hand and a spinning kick to get the win. Like, it was only a couple of seconds. This match was literally only a couple of seconds. But then after the match was over, she beat up the jobber a little bit more to prove her point, and then she made her entrance out. And it's like I said last week, Xia Li showing more aggression is just something that I can seriously buy into, because as much as I loved Xia Li as a babyface, you know, and her abilities here, it feels like her being more aggressive and showing more of her bad side with Boa and this mysterious Mortal Kombat looking boss person. It's really good. Like, I really enjoy it. Like, I could just take a big bite out of it. It's so good. I love heel Xia Li, and I want to see more of it. And I actually want to see her possibly get a chance at the NXT Women's Championship. That is, if Raquel Gonzalez doesn't take it from Io Shirai first, because she did have a promo talking about how she beat up Rhea Ripley and how she now has her eyes on the NXT Women's title in Io Shirai. But I feel like Io Shirai and Xia Li going up against each other would just be really interesting, because they have so much knowledge of wrestling and also different Asian fighting backgrounds too. So that would just be more intriguing, you know, to see that there. But Raquel Gonzalez, it's definitely her turn in the spotlight. So good for her. So that's really all that happened with the girls. Well, no, that's not all that happened with the girls. Shotzi Blackheart announced that she is going to partner with Ember Moon to participate in the Women's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic that's going to start next week. And then Casey Catanzaro and Kaden Carter both announced that they're going to be in it as well. And we have more female tag teams that, of course, announced it. You know, Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell have announced that they're going to be in it too. So I think it's going to be interesting. And even Bayley was trying to, you know, put her foot in with it. But girl, the only partner you got is Carmella, and she's going after Sasha Banks. So, I mean, I don't know who she could tag with, but we don't know. But I am still intrigued at the idea of a women's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Cup, so that's going to be cool. So that's really all that happened with the girls. And now with the men, we had the Grizzled Young Veterans versus Everrise in the first round of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic for the dudes. And this match was very impressive. Like, I actually got to pay more attention and see the ability that the Grizzled Young Veterans have, and then just to see their chemistry as a tag team. And they are fantastic. Like, I feel like I should have been watching them on NXT UK before, but somehow or another, I believe that show comes on while I'm at work, so I can't. So, Zach Gibson took control of the match right away and then brought in James Drake to keep the pressure on. But then Chase Parker of Everrise yanked Drake down by his hair to turn the tables. But then Gibson had to calm Drake down so that he wouldn't get the team disqualified. Then Gibson came in and hit Matt Martell of Everrise on the apron before turning his attention back to Parker. And then the Grizzled Young Veterans spent the next few minutes putting Parker through the ringer and not allowing him to get the tag. And then finally, Matt Martell got the hot tag and then went after both opponents with a flurry of strikes. And then both teams participated in a sequence of double team moves that led Gibson and Drake hitting their finisher for the win here. And now the Grizzled Young Veterans, you know, get to advance in the tournament, and Everrise is out. So, like I said, this match was very impressive here, and I feel like I should have been paying attention to the Grizzled Young Veterans all along. But, you know, we live and we learn, and we get loves. So we move on. Then we had a match with Johnny Gargano versus Dexter Loomis. And this was really interesting here because, you know, they came out for their match, and then Johnny Gargano and his championship for the North American title wasn't on the line, but he still had Austin Theory, you know, to provide him with some backup there because they have to cheat, like I said. And then Dexter Loomis gave him a drawing of him, but then Gargano tore it up in complete heel fashion. And then Dexter Loomis took him down with ease. And then he creepily chased Gargano out of the ring. And I thought that was really cool because as Gargano was backing up, Dexter Loomis was crawling towards him with his face in his face. And then he crawled out of the ring kind of like a creepy spider. And I was just like, yes, this is the creepiness I need in my life. I don't like horror movies, but that was just really cool. But yeah, then Johnny Wrestling was still able to give him a kick to the face. And then they fought on the top rope until Dexter Loomis knocked him down. And then Johnny avoided a senton bomb as the show went to commercial break. And then they came back from commercial break, and then Dexter Loomis began to make a comeback and then uncorked a couple of stiff right hands. And it looked like he had the match in hand, but of course, Austin Theory provided the distraction, which led to Johnny Gargano rolling up Dexter Loomis for the win, which irritated me because I'm looking like, so Candice got to win due to distraction, and now you got to win with a distraction? Girl, bye. I'm sick of y'all. Either way. Then Gargano and Theory tried to attack Dexter Loomis after the match, but then Kushida ran out to make the save, and then Kushida made it clear that he's going to go after the North American title now. And I think that's cool, but I would prefer to see Dexter Loomis go after it first. Because Dexter Loomis is like, he had an opportunity at one time, but I think he got injured and he never had a chance to go back after it. So I want him to do more and go after a title, and messing with Johnny Gargano seems like the best thing for him. But if they're going to go with Kushida, then okay, go with Kushida. But, whatever. That's no shade at Kushida, though, because he's really cool. But, I just want Dexter Loomis to get a chance first. So, yeah. Then we had another Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic match for the first round with Jake Atlas and Isaiah Swerve Scott partnering in spite of their previous beef with MSK. Now, I didn't necessarily know who MSK was going to be, and everybody was sort of wondering who these guys were going to be. So, it started off with a little bit of mystery, and then as it turns out, they came out, and it turned out to be these new recruits from the Performance Center named Wes Lee and Nash Carter, who actually just signed, with the WWE, and they just came from, I believe Impact Wrestling as a completely different team with the Rascals, and it was 3 of them, but then one of them didn't get signed, and then the other 2 did, and a lot of people were heartbroken by it on social media, and a lot of people were angry about it, and felt like they should have brought up all 3, but, who knows what happened with that. But Nash Carter and Wesley are here, and they made a big splash in their debut. So Jake Atlas started off against Nash Carter, and they had a nice exchange of takedowns and counters that led to Atlas getting a 2 count. Then Swerve tagged in, and then Carter brought in Wesley, and then after a moment, Scott and Atlas cornered the newcomer for a double team combo, and then Scott and Atlas employed some dirty tactics, and then it led to a huge brawl at ringside with all 4 men. And then we returned from a commercial break to see Nash Carter holding Scott in a body scissor, and then they both made the tag, and then Lee went on a rampage, and then both teams came close, but then MSK ended up scoring a win to advance in the tournament. And that's something that seriously surprised me there. It's like you have the Rascals, aka MSK, winning in their debut match, and they did a phenomenal job. I was very impressed with them and their athleticism here. I was like, wow, it was great. I really like them, and I'm looking forward to see, who else they'll fight. Like, I want MSK versus the Grizzled Young Veterans, because the both of them were probably 2 of the best that I've seen in this tournament so far. And I'm very intrigued to see those 2 fight each other, but we'll see. And Atlas and Scott, being together as a team kind of intrigued me too, because I was just like, y'all are beefing, but okay, y'all are gonna work together, do it. So maybe they're going to continue their beef. Maybe they're going to break it up. But it was kind of interesting to see Jake Atlas be a little bit heelish here too. So, we'll see. Then we had the Undisputed Era versus Breezango, which was the 3rd Dusty Classic bout of the night. So this match was really good. And then you had Kyle O'Reilly, accompanying his teammates, because he wasn't cleared by medics, but he was still out there with Adam Cole and Roderick Strong. So Breeze and Cole, came to a stalemate after their first exchange, and then shook hands as a show of respect before they locked up again. And then they both tagged their partners in so Strong and Fandango could square up. And then we returned for a commercial break, and then Breezango started dominating Adam Cole with some standard tag team tactics. And really, even though they've won the NXT tag team titles before, their work is really so good, but I feel like a lot of them gets lost in how goofy they can act or whatever. But they've shown themselves to be more serious. So I'm really proud of them. Then Adam Cole brought in the master of the backbreaker to do what he does best, because Roderick Strong, if it's anything he knows how to do, he knows how to suplex and he knows how to backbreak, and that is awesome. So Roderick Strong unleashed a barrage of offense against, both the men, and then once Adam Cole had recovered, Roderick tagged him in for a double team move to get a near fall. Then Tyler Breeze turned the tables and tagged Fandango to kickstart a sequence that involved all four men taking each other out in various ways. So while this was going on, they were all laid out in the ring. Pete Dunne and Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch attacked Kyle O'Reilly in ringside until Finn Balor tried to make the save, but by then it was too late and they had already done damage, to Kyle O'Reilly. And then after they took them out, Adam Cole overcame the distraction and hit a super kick on Fandango for the win. So now the Undisputed Era, they go for it in the tournament, in the tag team tournament, but there's still the intrigue of Pete Dunne and his friends, the NXT tag team champions, Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch, out there beating up on Kyle O'Reilly and breaking his jaw further and causing more damage to his mouth, and trying to sort of give off the impression that Pete Dunne wants to go after Finn Balor for his NXT title. And there's just a lot going on here, but it's still really good. It makes for really good television here. So there's a lot of chemistry there. So NXT turned out to be a pretty solid show. And that's all for that recap. And now we're going to recap SmackDown. Okay, y'all. So for the final recap, we're going to recap SmackDown. And this was a really good show. I literally feel like SmackDown is like the best show out of all three brands. It's like number 1 is SmackDown, number 2 is NXT, and number 3 is Raw. But yeah, that's where we're at now. But then again, I'll always love SmackDown because that's like my favorite show. Either way, this SmackDown was really good in terms of the girls. So with the girls, we had a match with Liv Morgan facing Natalya, and Liv Morgan came out, of course, with Ruby Riott as her Riott Squad partner / moral support. But the person who also came out with them, which really surprised me, was Billie Kay, because last week, they were talking about how Billie didn't have a partner and that she was really looking for somewhere to go because nobody else would accept her. So they reluctantly accepted her into the Riott Squad fold. And Billie Kay came out dressed up like a punk rocker with a skirt on and her hair in like different she had like her hair tied in like different I don't want to say they're like balls or whatever, but I don't know exactly how to describe how her hair looked. But it wasn't just straight down like it normally is. Like she had like a design in it, and it was really cute. But she was sort of posing a distraction to Liv for the match. And Natalya wound up winning with a schoolboy pin. And then Natalya also had Tamina Snuka out there for moral support. And Tamina was also chasing Billie Kay around and sort of stopping her from, interfering in the match or whatever. But then as Liv got distracted, that was where Natalya hit the pin for the win. But something else that impressed me about this match was seeing Liv sort of go toe to toe with Natalya with all of the takedowns that she was trying to do. And she really was, being a little bit more athletic here against someone like Natalya. And I thought that was really impressive because, Natalya was basically trained, in the Heart Dungeon. And then you have someone like Liv who sort of started out, wrestling and training in the Performance Center. So really, in terms of experience, you have Natalya who has more experience than Liv here. But as you can see, Liv is actually improving a whole lot more. But a lot of people probably won't necessarily pay that much attention, but I did, and it was really cool. So it seemed like the Riott Squad was a little bit irritated with Billie Kay's interference there. So I guess they might throw her out, or maybe they'll keep her. I'm not sure. Also with the women, Bayley hosted her new talk show called Ding Dong Hello, and actually had a door in the ring with a couch and everything, and called it Ding Dong Hello. And her first guest was Bianca Belair, of course. So since they've been going back and forth, you know, she invited her on the show. And Bayley had on this outfit that screamed very fashionable talk show host at night. And she had on these glasses. She had her hair in that, you know, signature bob. She had on the turtleneck and everything. She just looked really cute here. And she was really hamming it up as a host. So she made, you know, Bianca Belair come through the door after she made her entrance with her cute pink outfit and everything. And she came in the door, and then Bayley was, of course, messing with her and basically saying that it's disrespectful for Bianca Belair to call herself the EST when so many women came before her, you know, and, you know, paved the way for her, you know, to wrestle. But I think she was basically making reference to herself. So as Bianca was talking about, you know, having confidence and how, you know, it just bothers people, you know, how it just bothers people, you know, how much confidence she has, Bayley interrupted her and said, well, since you're so confident, how about, you know, I challenge you to an obstacle course and see which one is the most athletic, right? And Bianca Belair was like, girl, say less. And I was just like, come on. Like, Bayley, I know Bayley somehow is going to find some type of stupid way to cheat, but you cannot challenge one of your most athletically gifted wrestlers to an obstacle course match and then not match, but an obstacle course challenge, and then expect her to lose if it's fair. So I think that's going to be interesting next week, but I'm ready for them to have their match against each other though, because I think that's going to be really good. So, and then also with the women, you had a backstage segment with Carmella and Reggie, and Carmella was telling Kayla that she feels like Sasha Banks was hiding from her in the past 2 weeks because she knows that because I pinned her over the past couple of weeks that I'm just naturally better than her. And then Sasha ran up to try to attack her, but then Reggie stood in her way and got bold and buck, you know, smiling at her and saying, yeah, you're not gonna hurt her because I'm in your face. And then Sasha said, you know, that she would give Carmella a title match, but only if she could wrestle Reggie one-on-one first. And when I tell you I popped so big in my house for this moment, I was like, girl, yes, you better beat Reggie up. Beat him up for me, because I get so sick of Reggie getting in Sasha's face all the time and acting all big and bold and then moving out the way and everything just so Carmella could just win like that. Like, I'm sick of it. I'm ready to see Reggie get his butt handed to him by somebody who could basically whoop him sideways and probably destroy him in more ways than anybody else. Like, I'm so ready to see parts of him all over the ring. I hope she break his arm. I hope she breaks his jaw. Like, I hope he just gets broken by Sasha Banks, because I get so sick of him getting all big and bold and bad. Like, you ain't gonna hit her. Boy, bye. Boy, bye. You're being used. Wake up and realize it. Get your own career. Leave Carmella alone, because Carmella is just using you because she can't win nobody. She can't win no matches without somebody helping her. Leave the dudes alone and stay out of women's business. Ugh. Either way, I'm ready for Sasha to beat up Reggie. I'm really ready. I know I just went on a whole rant, y'all, but I'm really ready for it to happen. And that's pretty much all that happened with the girls. Pretty good stuff. So the show started in terms of the men with Shinsuke versus Jey Uso. And Jey Uso started the match, you know, he didn't start the match. He came out there to cut a promo after Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns were trying to come up with plans for their contract for his Universal title match against Adam Pearce at the Royal Rumble. And then Jey Uso was talking about how dominant the family is and how dominant his cousin is and how he planned to win the Royal Rumble and try to rule WWE when he faces Drew McIntyre for the WWE title. So as he was talking all this smack, which he tends to do really well, Shinsuke Nakamura came out and interrupted him, and his music was the original Rising Sun music from when he was faced the first time, and I was so excited because I'm just like, yes, Shinsuke, yes! So this match was really good here. And then Cesaro came out, you know, I guess as moral support. He was on commentary for the match, you know, after he announced that he was going to enter the Royal Rumble and stuff. And Jey Uso, you know, almost won with a pin with his foot on the ropes, but the referee caught him cheating. And I'm just like, yes, referee, catch him cheating. Thank you. But then Nakamura hit a Kinshasa on him for the win. So I'm pretty sure Roman Reigns probably tore him another butthole, but we didn't see it, for losing that match. But it's always good to see Shinsuke Nakamura, especially with his performance from last week in that gauntlet match. It's so good to see him, actually get that rub to, have a good singles run. Like, I'm really glad some of these people are really getting a rub for this. And then Cesaro came up there to celebrate with him because, they were tag team partners for a while, even tag team champions for a while. But I kept having this sinking feeling that maybe Cesaro was going to turn on him, but we'll see. And then actually Cesaro went on to win his match against Daniel Bryan. And this was an outstanding match because these are two of the best technical wrestlers in all of, wrestling, period. And it was just really good. There was even this one impressive spot where Cesaro hit a twisting suplex from the top rope on, Daniel Bryan, and it was just really cool. Like, I was really impressed by that. Like, this match was really good. So it seems like there are a lot of people on SmackDown who wouldn't normally get a chance to get a little bit of a rub doing it, so that was really cool. Then we had Apollo Crews versus Sami Zayn, and there was something really intriguing happen with Apollo Crews. He was backstage with Roman Reigns as Roman Reigns was trying to negotiate his contract with Adam Pearce, right? So he was sitting there and I guess learning from Roman Reigns, and I'm just like, so Apollo Crews really is digging into this heel thing. Like, because last week he went heel and sort of, full on slap Big E in the face, for, wanting a rematch, for the Intercontinental title because he felt like it should have been him, then won that match because, of course, that match ended in a double count out and all the other stuff. Well, not a double count out. It was a double pin, and he felt like he should have been given that title, and he was mad about it, and then he slapped Big E, and then Big E beat him, and now he really wants to go after that title. And now Apollo Crews, went on to beat up Sami Zayn and beat him up with a roll-up pin while holding the tights. And what's so funny is Sami Zayn tried to win the same way, but he got caught. And then Apollo Crews did the same thing, and we saw a load of Sami Zayn's butt that I never wanted to see. Like, I never wanted to see Sami Zayn's butt crack, but we got an eye full of it last night, and I was like, oh my God, stop it. But either way, Apollo Crews won the match, and he started to get buck at Big E, who was laying on a couch in a Ghostbuster sweater with his IC title, looking at the match and on commentary. And then while he was on commentary, and then after Apollo Crews won his match, he came out there, and then he got in Big E's face, and Big E was jaw-jacking at him. And then Apollo Crews took the IC title from him and then proceeded to give it back to them. And I'm just like, you keep playing Big E for soft just because he goofy, and I'm gonna need for you to sit down. I understand that you're trying to tap into a point of aggression that we haven't seen you tap into since you've been on the main roster, baby, but I'm gonna need for you to sit down. Big E is going to slap you and beat the crap out of you and retain his title, sweetheart. It's not gonna be, some simple, I'm gonna run through you and blah, blah, blah. Like, sit down. But then somebody on Twitter said that they might be setting up the fact that he'll be beefing with Apollo Crews while also low-key beefing with Roman Reigns and possibly having a chance to have the IC title and the Universal title. I don't know, but with Royal Rumble time, I would prefer if Big E won the Royal Rumble, but we'll see. I don't know how that's gonna go. So if Big E doesn't win the Royal Rumble, I would want for Keith Lee to win the Royal Rumble. It's funny, all of my predictions for people who win the Royal Rumble are all black people, but I don't make any apologies for that. Black excellence. Either way, this was a really interesting thing. But then something else that kind of irritated me a little bit was King Corbin versus Rey Mysterio. And I loved hearing Dominic on commentary with Corey and Michael Cole, because towards the beginning of the match, Michael Cole was talking about how cool it was that he was sitting out with him, because he remembered when Dominic first came to a match in WWE, he was like yay high, and now he's a big man, and now he's a WWE superstar. And then Dominic said, well, that just means you're getting old. And then Michael Cole was like, haha, I am getting old. And it was just pretty funny there. And of course, Corey Graves is being the heel commentator that he is and getting up under his skin, saying, you're not going to do anything to help your dad, because King Corbin is kicking his butt right now. And when Dominic tried to get into the match, King Corbin took advantage of it and started beating up on him and saying, what you going to do about it? You're not going to do anything about it. You're not going to do anything about it because you'll ruin his chance to win the match and blah, 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 because disqualification. But even as Rey Mysterio was gaining the upper hand, King Corbin basically wound up hitting the end of days on him, and he wound up losing. But Dominic, was losing his mind backstage, and he got mad saying, bruh, like, I wanted to kick his butt and all this other stuff. But Rey Mysterio said, I have an idea of someone who we could get to possibly, help us win or help us, beat up on King Corbin. And I feel like Baron Corbin has been king for almost 3 years now, and I really need a new king of the ring like today, because him being a king and acting like he running stuff just doesn't do it for me. Like, I'm gonna need for him to stop, and I really need a new king of the ring. Like, I hope somehow or another they bring back King of the Ring so they could just get a new one, because I'm tired. But it's not like the gimmick doesn't work, because it works, but at the same time I'm tired of it. So yeah, I'm trying to and then the Street Profits had an interview backstage, and even though they were bummed out that they lost their tag titles to the Dirty Dogs in the form of Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler, they were promised that they were going to bounce back and get those tag titles back because they want the smoke. So that was pretty good. And then SmackDown ended with the contract signing between Roman Reigns and Adam Pearce. And as they went to the ring, Paul Heyman told Roman Reigns it was a standard bout agreement, but then he told Roman Reigns that he felt there should be a stipulation. And then they later on added a no DQ rule, but then went on to add a last man standing rule instead. So they got in the ring and then signed the contract, and then Pearce reluctantly, signed his name before signing the contract to Roman Reigns. And then Paul Heyman yelled at him and called him passive aggressive. And then Pearce said, I think I've waited all night for you to do that. And then as he grabbed the contract and then left the ring, he suddenly started limping out of nowhere. And he was just like, how sometimes, you have an old injury that just sneaks up on you and you can't fight and stuff like that. And then Adam Pearce said, well, you don't need to worry about this old nagging injury, because with all contracts, cards are always subject to change, and he would find a suitable replacement for the match before introducing Kevin Owens to come out. And now Kevin Owens signed the contract, and now he's going to fight Roman Reigns for the Universal title at the Royal Rumble instead of Adam Pearce. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit bummed out because, over the past week, a lot of people were saying, don't underestimate Adam Pearce, because once upon a time he was, a 5-time NWA champion, and he was, a really good independent wrestler before he got signed on in the WWE as an official, right? And we were all sort of looking forward to seeing him, throw down with Roman Reigns under a big, stage like the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble is a big 4 pay-per-view that sets the stage for WrestleMania, so that could have been huge for him, right? But now we got Kevin Owens, and we've seen them fight before, but at the same time it's still gonna be good, because every time they fought each other, it hasn't been boring in this past few, in this feud that they've had going on over the past couple months. So I still figure, this is a last man standing match. This is still gonna be good. So either way, it's still going to be great. And that's it for SmackDown. And now we're going to go to the conclusion. All right, so thank you for listening to this episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. As usual, if you want to follow me on social media, you can follow the Facebook page at Hardy Wrestling with Stephanie Hardy. And you can follow me on Instagram at Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and follow me on Twitter at Hardy Wrestle Pod. And you can listen to the podcast on the Anchor app, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and on YouTube. And you can like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel called Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And you can listen to it wherever podcasts are sold and put out there. So, I also want to thank Jon Averson for coming on the show, and wish him all the good luck in the world in his wrestling journey. Whether he's in Atlanta, or whether he's in Mobile, or whether he's in Birmingham or Montgomery, no matter where you go, just know that the Hardy Wrestling Podcast will always support you and any other wrestler that comes on this show. And we wish you nothing but the best. Also, I'm still selling my t-shirts, my Chill, Positive, and Passionate t-shirts for $20. If you want one, you can message me. They come in the sizes of small through extra large, and if you need a bigger size, you can also message me that as well. And if you want to pay for it, you can cash at me at #Stephanie Hardy 4, and they come in colors black and white. And I just can't wait to continue to give you amazing content. A lot of great things happened this week with the podcast, and also with being, followed by cool people. I got followed by this guy named Chris Van Vliet, who has one of the best podcasting platforms for wrestlers ever. And it was such an honor to be, followed by him. And also, it was an honor to be featured on Derek Gamble's wrestling podcast, Wrestling IQ 101, this past week. Like, it's just been a really good time to be a wrestling podcaster. And I cannot wait, to give you guys more content, more great interviews, and just more great prizes along the way. So thank you for supporting the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And until next time, I hope you're being safe and being your best selves. And until next time, bye y'all.
We're always driving to dance lessons. So we signed up for Know Your Drive. We save money and get closer to her dancing dreams.
The daring young man on the flying trapeze.
Or maybe her singing dreams. Sign up for Know Your Drive and save up to 20%. American Family Insurance. Insure carefully, dream fearlessly.
Products not available in every state. Discount terms apply. Visit amfam.com/knowyourdrive for details. American Family Mutual Insurance Company, SI, and its operating company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin.